Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, Dad.
Good morning, Mr. Dangles.
All right.
Mr. Dangles.
Hi.
Good morning.
Hello.
Okay, today we are in the Old Testament. We are finishing Unit 4, Major Prophets, with Book 5, Daniel. All right, today is Lesson 1 of 1 in Daniel, titled Kings and Revelations. Can I get a volunteer to open us in prayer, please? Titus, I saw your hand go from a lower position to a higher position. Go for it.
Alright. Thank you, God, that you get to come and do Sunday school and help us learn stuff and not be distracted and help us have a good day at church. Amen.
Amen. All right. The last 4 weeks we have been in Ezekiel. Can someone tell me some things about Ezekiel, about the book? Doesn't have to be in any particular order. Just something that you learned or something that happened.
He was a prophet who was prophesying against Israel, telling them to be ready for the siege that was coming.
Yeah. So he was speaking out against Israel and Judah and Jerusalem, warning them of the impending doom, and they were not listening. Where was he stationed? Babylon. Yeah. So he was already in Babylon with Daniel. He was already in Babylon at that time, and warning the people there, and then also kind of corresponding with the people who are back in Jerusalem, warning them and saying the end is coming for Jerusalem. Okay? What else? What were some of the object lessons that you remember?
He played with stick figures.
Okay.
Action figures.
Okay.
He ate poop food.
No, he ate
Yeah.
food cooked food.
I love that
Yeah,
one.
poop food.
Oh, he cut his hair.
Okay.
Yeah. Had a weird haircut.
He was tied up on the ground.
He was
For a
tied
year.
up on the ground.
Facing, he
Watched
was
his
facing
hair
away
fly
from
in the
the
wind.
wind.
Let his hair fly in the wind. He was
Oh, he
facing a
chopped
certain
up his
direction.
I forgot which
Yeah.
Pretty sure facing Jerusalem. Yeah. Okay.
He has a full-time job of laying on the side.
Yep. His full-time job was laying down on the ground.
But then God told him that the people would not listen.
Yeah.
But you still have to do it.
Yeah. You still got to do it, even though people aren't going to listen.
And then he watched the temple leave, but didn't actually
Mm.
leave. It was just
God had it blocked away.
He had a vision of God leaving the temple, like the house of God, where God's presence is on earth,
Like it.
and God's presence is no longer there. Okay. How did the book end? I wasn't here for that. How did it end?
Great question.
The city is
It
named.
is saying the name of.
Oh
What did you say, Katie?
The city is named.
The city is named. What city?
That one city.
The new one.
The new one.
The
12 games.
Okay. So we have a new city that's established. Yeah.
Can I tell you the name?
Sure. What's the name of the city?
And the name of that city, from the time on shall be, the Lord is there.
The Lord is there.
I was like so hyped for something, and then I mean that's excited. Don't get me wrong, but I thought it was gonna be like,
Yahweh Shema.
you know,
Yeah. The Lord.
it's a good name though.
Yahweh Shema.
Emmanuel City. That's what I'm calling it. Emmanuel City.
I like
Right.
that.
Did you guys look at comparisons between Ezekiel's city and the city that John saw in Revelation?
Yeah.
What are some of the similarities?
The 12 gates.
Okay, the gates.
The water.
Living water.
Yeah, a river of life, living water.
Tree.
The names were different.
Tree of life. Mhm.
The names were different.
The names were different, yeah. In Revelation, it's called what?
New Jerusalem.
New Jerusalem. Whereas in Ezekiel, it's called Yahweh is there. Cities have different names, right? What city is called the Big Apple?
New York City.
Yeah, right? It's the same thing.
Square makes a lot.
Sometimes it's also called Gotham, which I think is funny. Like that's where Batman writers got it from. Anyway, So, same city, different names.
Never seen that one before.
Okay. Did we learn anything else at the end of the day? Or is that pretty much covered? What's the conclusion of the presence of the Lord leaving? What
He's not
happens?
there anymore.
What?
It's moving to Babylon.
Move to Babylon? What happens at the end of the book?
God is moving with his people because he'll never leave us.
Yeah.
And then he moves back to Jerusalem and his people get released.
And ultimately, God's presence is in this new, fantastic city that doesn't even fit the geography of current Earth. I don't know if you guys talked about that or not. That was kind of some behind the scenes
Isn't it bigger
digging
than
that I
Earth?
did. Like the dimensions of the temple and of the city does not fit the geography of current Jerusalem. The temple does not fit on that mountain. It is so much bigger. There has to be a new earth for it to fit there.
Where's your 3.0?
Hmm?
Where's your 2.0?
Yeah. All right. Or maybe 3.0. Depends on if you count before the flood as being different.
No.
Also depends on who you talk to. All right. Cool. So let's open up to the book of Daniel. So today we're going to do an overview of Daniel because Pastor Grady is spending 5 to 6 months in total going through like verse by verse, section by section, and giving all sorts of details and historical context and all of that. So we're only spending 1 week, and it's just an overview, just glossing over the entire book. If you want to hear more, listen to Pastor Grady. Okay? Most, if not all, of the sermons on Daniel are on like the church YouTube page. So you can go back and listen to all of those. I believe he's planning to conclude Daniel next week or the week after, sometime in the near future. So we're almost there, but we're going to get a little ahead of him today. All right? Are there any questions or comments about that before we get into it? Okay, so just know we're glossing over it. A lot of it has already been talked about. I don't have all the answers of the things that haven't been talked about, so just pay attention in the sermon today and next week. Okay, how did the reading go for everybody? Okay, mixed reviews. I see a lot of thumbs ups.
If it's a double thumbs up, according to that
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into it. So let's open up our Bibles and our notebooks. So something important to know about the book of Daniel, and I believe Pastor Grady has mentioned it, but I don't think he spent a lot of time on it. I did miss a couple of Sundays in here though. So if this is something he spent a lot of time on, let me know and I won't spend that much time on it. But something to note is that the book of Daniel is written in 2 different languages. Can you name those 2 different languages?
Koine Greek?
No.
No.
Hebrew. Hebrew is one of them. Most of, this is the one section that isn't. The Old Testament is written in Hebrew. Okay. Minus a little bit of Ezra and a pretty big chunk of Daniel. And they are written in, what's the other language? What?
Aramaic.
Aramaic. Okay. So Aramaic. Everybody knows Hebrew is the language of the Israelites, right? The language that the Old Testament law is written. All of the Holy Scriptures that Daniel had access to at that time were written originally in Hebrew. Okay, that was also more than likely Daniel's native language, right? He was from Judah, speaking Hebrew. Then he's taken, we read this in the beginning of chapter 1, he's taken in the first wave of exiles to Babylon as a young man. Don't know how old, but maybe your age, maybe a little older, maybe a little younger. And was taken to this new place called Babylon where they speak a different language. Okay? And the primary language that's spoken there is called Aramaic. And it's a similar language to Hebrew, but it's different enough, okay? Think like, we all speak English, but then there's like Spanish, French, Italian.
French is so
Right.
confusing. It's like
There's these
totally different.
languages that are related, okay? They have similar root words. If you speak one, you might be able to pull bits and pieces of another language. You might be able to learn that other language fairly easily. That's kind of the difference between Hebrew and Aramaic. They're similar root languages, but still a different enough language, okay? Unlike America, most people would probably speak multiple languages, okay? America is pretty unique, actually, even in today's world of only speaking one language.
Yeah, we're just
All right, so Aramaic was just another language. It's the primary language in this new place that Daniel and his friends are living. Okay, so let's get into the first section. So you'll see there's Hebrew at the beginning of the book and at the end of the book, but then the bulk in the middle is all in
The
Aramaic.
main part.
Okay, so let's look at chapter 1, which is written in Hebrew, and I've titled this "The Faithful in Babylon." Okay, so who can summarize chapter 1? How does it start off? I've kind of already given you a bit. We're introduced to Daniel and a couple of other people. Who are the other people that we're introduced to in chapter 1? Give me their full government names. I'm looking for 3 plus Daniel.
Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let's look in verse 7 and give me their full double names. Start with Daniel. What's Daniel's other name?
Belshazzar.
Belteshazzar. Okay, why do these people have 2 different names?
Because one is their birth given name, and the other one is the name given them by the Babylonian government.
Yeah, they have a Hebrew name, the name that they were given at birth by their parents, and then they're adopted into this new society and they need a Babylonian sounding name. And I believe most of these are kind of named after some sort of deity or god or some heavenly being, right? We see Daniel's name is Belteshazzar, and then later there's a king with a very similar name, Belshazzar, both named after one of the primary deities. Cool. Okay, so Daniel called Belteshazzar. Who's the next person? Hananiah is
Shadrach.
the Hebrew name. Shadrach is the Babylonian name. Okay, next.
Is it Mishal?
Mhm.
Mishal?
Mishael.
He called Meshach.
Yep, Meshach.
And Benny.
And who's the last one?
Benny.
Azariah.
Azariah he called Abednego. Okay. Rakshak and Benny. And Daniel. Okay. Alright. And who are these young men?
Godly dudes.
Godly dudes.
Chocolate factory workers are
Nope.
fighting the
Nope.
Incorrect.
They want to eat the money.
I'm willing to call them Rakshak and Benny because their names are weird.
Aren't they like smarter than the other kids, and
Smarter
so
than the
they were
average kid.
chosen by the king to be like brought up in his court or something?
Or something, yeah. Okay. So we're just looking in the first 7 verses here. We are given our historical context, the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, didn't he want like some people of Israel like who are like skilled and knowledgeable to teach them like their language and
Mhm.
whatnot?
Yeah. So King Nebuchadnezzar besieges Jerusalem. This is not the fall of Jerusalem. This is Babylon comes in, lays siege, and Jerusalem is like kind of defeated, but not destroyed. And captives are taken to Babylon. It's the first wave. So Ezekiel would have been in this wave along with Daniel and Rapshak and Ben. Okay? And essentially they're hostages. Okay? It does say that they are young men, youths without blemish, of good appearance and skillful in all wisdom. Okay? They're essentially hostages so that Jerusalem won't rebel against Babylon. Okay? It is the enemy comes in, defeats you or at least subdues you, takes your children back home with them, and says, you better behave. Because if you don't, we have your kids. They're going to be treated well, but we have your kids. Okay, they're hostages. And then later on, Babylon completely defeats Jerusalem and takes the last remaining bit of people back. Okay? But this is the first wave. And so we have young people taken into Babylon to be taught the language, taught the culture. It seems like they're treated well. They're not like slaves, but they are workers with an education system as well. That's better than dead, I guess. Maybe?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Second half of chapter 1, we see these 4 young men being faithful. How are they faithful here?
They refused to like defile themselves and eat the king's food, drink his wine and stuff.
So they get there and they are offered food and drink. What kind of food and drink are they offered?
Wine.
Wine. Okay.
Meat,
Meat.
the leftovers of the king.
Okay. Like good food. What we would consider very good, rich food. They weren't like eating scraps and moldy bread and whatever. It's like meat, wine, fruits and vegetables. Yeah.
I think this might be wrong, but I think Pastor Grady said that like the meat was a sacrifice to one of their gods, and Daniel and his friends didn't want to eat the meat because it was the sacrifice to Baal.
Yeah,
Quite possibly, yeah.
that's what he said in the sermon.
Mm-hmm. And that would make sense, right? That was even common in Yahweh's temple. It was like, you sacrifice, there's a burnt offering, but what you're burning is like the guts. And then the meat was eaten by the Levites. That's how they had their food. Like, all of these sacrifices are basically potlucks for the temple workers to be fed, right? So that's not uncommon, but here it would be meat sacrificed not to Yahweh, and it would probably also not be kosher, or the meat that the law says is clean
Like
and
pork or
safety.
something.
It's probably pork, things like that, okay? Not that there's anything wrong with eating pork, but according to Old Testament Jewish law, that was unclean. Don't eat it. It's not fit for sacrifice, it's not fit for consumption, okay? New Testament, God said, if I made it, it's good to eat. Okay, that's a different thing, but
So we
Peter-
shouldn't eat American cheese.
Peter saw a vision of all sorts of animals coming down on a tablecloth, and God said, eat it. Even if it's a pig, eat it. It's fine. In other words, that old law has been done away with. We don't have to worry about not eating bacon. God still loves us if we eat bacon. Okay. Okay. And these young men were faithful. How were they faithful? They're offered all this good food. What did they do with it?
Not eat it.
Yeah, they said, we're not going to do that. give us fruits and vegetables instead. Things that have not been sacrificed, things that are not unclean and unholy,
He also asked for water instead of wine.
and water instead of wine. And then there's kind of these two tables set up in the cafeteria. It's like, here's all the good food, and here's the fruits, vegetables, and water. And how was the comparison between those two tables?
Wasn't it like four of them went over to?
What?
4 of them went over to like the veggies and the water.
Okay, there's a group that ate the fruits and vegetables and water.
It looked a lot better.
Yeah, like who was healthier at the end? Or were the ones who didn't have as round of a diet because they weren't eating much protein, were they like shriveled up and like, oh, I've hardly had any food? No, they were healthy, just as healthy as the people who were eating, you know, the full food pyramid diet. They're just as healthy. Okay, God sustained them through that because of their faithfulness. All right. And then the chapter ends by saying that Daniel was there in Babylon until the first year of King Cyrus. So that's like a jump ahead, so we know how long he's there. He's there from, the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, until the 1st year of King Cyrus. Much later. All right? Okay. Chapter 2 is where we start Aramaic, but not at the beginning of chapter 2. I'll tell you where we are, where it starts. Okay? So here we have the 2nd year of the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar, and he has dreams. Okay? Are these good dreams? Troubling dreams. He woke up in a sweat from nightmares, and he goes to his smart people and says, tell me about these dreams. What do they mean? And do his smart people tell him what the dreams mean?
Well, then they're not smart.
They're not smart.
Well, first he tells them to tell him.
Yeah, he doesn't even say, I had a dream, here's all the details, figure out what it means. He just says, tell me what my dream was. Can you, Katie, tell me the dream that I had last night?
Your dog was in it.
No.
You were cooking pancakes.
There's no way of knowing what my dream was last night.
Do you remember what your dream was last night?
No. Anything she said, I would have said no. Sorry.
Your dog could have been it.
So yeah, he doesn't even say like, here's all the details of my dream, figure out what they mean. Because if someone tells you the details of your dream, you might be able to just kind of like pull something out of the air or somewhere else and figure out what that means. Yeah, the 7 grains of whatever, yeah. Yeah. Going back to like Pharaoh with Joseph, right? But here it's like, tell me what my dream was. And they could not, obviously. Katie could not tell me my dream.
You couldn't even tell yourself the dream.
And right here in verse 3, he says to them, I had a dream, and my spirit is troubled to know the dream. Then the Chaldeans is another word for Babylonians. The Chaldeans said to the king in Aramaic, then there's quotes, and this is where it changes from Hebrew to Aramaic, is in this quote. So they say to him in Aramaic, quote, language change, O king, live forever, tell your servants the dream, and we will show you the interpretation. And from there, through the end of chapter 7, it is in Aramaic. It is a smooth, seamless transition. We're in Hebrew because that's how the book started, and then he said to him in Aramaic, change of language. Okay, so now we're in Aramaic, the king's dream, and these wise guys can't figure out what it was. So, what happens? Wise people. Yeah. The king was very angry. We're in verse 12. Very angry. And he was going to have all of these quote-unquote wise men destroyed, put to death. Dun, dun, dun. But then when Daniel and his companions were rounded up, Daniel says, "Hey, I can maybe help." And he's able to tell the king the dream and interpret it for him. Right? Through his own power?
No.
Oh, no.
God's.
Through God's power. Yeah. And what is the dream that King Nebuchadnezzar had? And what does it mean?
Statue, you're talking about a
Yeah.
statue.
There's a statue. What's the statue made out of?
Head of
You don't need the
gold.
specifics, but roughly. Is it like a perfectly golden statue?
Head of gold, chest and arms of silver, middle and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, feet partly of iron and partly of clay.
So each section of this statue is made of a different material, starting at the top with really pure, really strong, and getting less pure and weaker as it goes down. Okay? And then in the dream, what happens? Something happens to this statue.
It's destroyed.
Yeah. There's a rock, a big old rock, just kind of comes out of nowhere and destroys this statue. And then that rock that is hurled at the statue becomes a great mountain. And then Nebuchadnezzar wakes up and freaks out. Okay. What's the interpretation of the dream? What's the statue represent?
Nations, like,
Nations fall. Like,
Yeah, it represents different empires of the world. The golden head is Babylon and Nebuchadnezzar, and then it goes down, each one is a different empire from there. What's the giant rock? What does that represent?
the Big Bang.
The Big Bang.
The meteor that destroyed the dinosaurs. No.
God.
Yeah, it's God's kingdom crushing these other empires and being established as a mountain. Okay? The kingdom of God is always associated with a mountaintop. Right? God's presence is associated with a mountaintop. Think the mountain of Sinai, like where God interacted directly with Moses. The temple is on a mountain. Okay? Abraham sacrificing Isaac, mountain. Okay? Mountains are associated with the presence of God and vice versa. All the way through the end, Ezekiel's temple and John's city are both mountaintop. The temple's at the top of the mountain. Okay? So God's kingdom destroys all the other kingdoms and is established on a mountain. Okay? Very cool. At the end of that chapter, Daniel is promoted. We already saw that. We see it again. He keeps
He's climbing up the ranks.
climbing the ladder. Okay? All right? Chapter 3. Very familiar. This is the bunny. Okay? But in reality, what is the bunny? It's not a chocolate bunny. What is it?
A gold statue of the king.
It's a golden statue that the king sets up. Honestly, probably because he had this dream of a statue with a head of gold. And he's like, I can do one better. Whole thing is gold. That's my guess. And
After it gets
what's the point of this
destroyed by
statue?
a rock.
He's like,
Jesus.
hey, if I make it entirely out of gold, big old rock can't break it.
The iron spoon.
It's because of the clay in the feet.
This isn't Minecraft.
Okay, so what's the purpose of this big old golden statue?
Some people worship him.
Yeah, to
Like a
worship.
representation of him.
Yeah, it's a representation of the king and worshiping the king. Okay? And when music sounds, you're supposed to bow down and worship this golden image. Who refuses to do that?
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Yeah.
And Benny.
Right, Benny. All right, the companions of Daniel that were mentioned earlier, and they refuse. Something that's interesting is that Daniel isn't mentioned in this chapter. We can assume that he did not bow down, but why is he not mentioned? There's not really an answer. Most people just say he was either exempt because he was a high official, or he was like not present. He was away on business for this and just missed out on it. Don't know. Otherwise, he would have been right there with them. So we're very familiar with the fiery furnace, right? Rakshak and Benny refuse to bow down, and the king is upset with them, gathers them, and is like, okay, you've got one more chance. Bow down. They refuse. He gets even angrier and has the furnace turned all the way up. What, I think it's 7 times hotter than usual.
Holy.
To the point where when they opened the furnace door, the guards were consumed by fire. Like the guy who opened the door just melted. And then other guys had to throw Rakshak and
And also
Benny
get no.
in. Maybe they were also, I don't know. But these 3 faithful men were thrown into the furnace, and instead of being burned up before they even got in, what happened?
Another dude appeared.
They were just like chilling in there. And then the king was like looking in, he's like, that was really bright. Am I seeing this right?
How can he look in?
How many guys did we put in there? Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. That's 3, right? There's 4. And that guy's really bright and shiny. He looks like one of the gods.
I'm so
Right?
shiny.
He doesn't say he looks like God. He looks like one of the sons of God, even, I think. Like, he looks like a son of the gods. It's like he's on the right track, but not quite there. And so then,
Wouldn't he melt if he looked into the other guy?
well, he can look in at a distance.
I know.
There's maybe a window to the furnace or something. I don't know.
That was the glass from
Yeah.
Telescope.
I don't know. But he has them removed, and they give testimony that their God, Yahweh, saved them and preserved them in that fire. And Nebuchadnezzar, for the first of many times, says, that's a really powerful God.
Yeah, it seems like in a lot of the chapters just end with, oh, Nebuchadnezzar. Oh,
Nebuchadnezzar-
that's the real God.
Is like, wow, blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and delivered his servants. who
I'm
trusted
just
him."
saying, wouldn't Nebuchadnezzar be very scared right now because he tried to kill
Yeah.
this powerful God's followers.
Yeah. And it didn't take.
He's like, oh, this is the real God. I'm sorry.
Well, that's why he made his decree to
Yeah. And then chapter 4 even starts with King Nebuchadnezzar sending out like a public message. So the beginning of chapter 4 is like, these are Nebuchadnezzar's words. King Nebuchadnezzar, to all the people, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied to you. It has seemed good to me to show the signs and wonders that the Most High God has done for me. How great are his signs, how mighty is his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion endures from generation to generation. The words of the king, the pagan king, who until this point probably didn't even know that Yahweh was even a god, let alone the God. And then publicly proclaiming the Most High God with an everlasting kingdom. Like this is true, like gospel words right here.
True facts of truth.
Yeah, true facts of truth. Even from the voice of a pagan who we see immediately ignores his own words. Okay? So, chapter 4, Nebuchadnezzar is given another dream. What is this dream?
I don't know, he didn't tell
tells
us.
it this time.
Yeah, at least we're told what the dream was. Right. And this is more first person words from the king himself. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at ease in my house. I saw a dream that made me afraid. Okay? So he has a dream, and in this dream, there is a big old tree. And this big old tree, a voice comes from the heavens and says, chop it down. And that tree is chopped down and taken away. It's no longer a tree. The stump is left, and that's all. Okay? And this tree is also talked about as a person. Like, chop the tree down, and that tree, he is going to be worthless. And his mind, the mind of the tree, is going to be that of an animal. And he is, let's see, let a beast's mind be given to him, the tree, and let 7 periods of time pass over him, the tree. So it's like, this tree definitely represents a guy. Okay. And this dream is interpreted for him, and what does this dream mean? Who is the tree? It is King Nebuchadnezzar himself. He is the tree that is going to be lopped off, all of its branches taken off, and the tree is going to be given the mind of a beast. And then, what happens at the end of that chapter, or in the second half of the chapter?
Daniel interprets.
Daniel interprets it. After that, we have Nebuchadnezzar
Goes insane.
goes insane.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
The dream
He
comes back.
specifically, he's like up on a rooftop and looks out over his beautiful kingdom, maybe like the hanging gardens and all that, and it's like, my kingdom that I made with my own hand, beautiful, love it. Also, grass kind of probably tastes good right now. I feel a little funky in the head. Okay, I'm just gonna be an animal for a while. And like starts eating grass for an amount of time, that most people call 7 years. It's 7 periods of time, long enough for his hair to grow really long. His fingernails are really long, like the talons of an eagle.
7 periods of time.
And he's probably really stinky and eats grass. And he's definitely not the king anymore. Right? He's a madman, a beast. And then he all of a sudden gets this realization that, remember back when I threw those dudes in the fire and they didn't die and they were saved by a god? That God is God of everything. And he has this same realization for a second time. And as soon as he has that and like speaks a little poem about his own problems and the greatness of God, his brain like comes back and he's restored. Nice. Very cool. Okay? And that's the end of chapter 4. Now, this is where some cool structure begins to happen, because the next chapter, chapter 5, is linked to chapter 4 thematically. Okay? So in chapter 5, we're introduced to a new king. Depending on how you translate certain words, he's either the son of Nebuchadnezzar, or at least like the next in line, or so.
Like a brother, little brother or
Yeah.
something.
Most of the time it's translated as son, but it could also be like Nebuchadnezzar was the previous king and this is the next king. Doesn't really matter. The next king is probably related to Nebuchadnezzar, and he is feasting and having a grand party, and he does something that angers Yahweh. Do you guys remember what he does?
Everything wrong?
Everything wrong. Go ahead.
So after, when Jerusalem was like sieged, they took the, so it was like the vessels, the like sacrifices and stuff that the priests would use for sacrifices.
Gold and silver. And,
Yeah, and he used them at a party for them to drink wine.
yeah, he uses like sacred objects from the temple chalices, bowls, whatever, and uses those to serve his drunken, debauched guests. Right? Think like in front of the temple was a big old basin to wash your hands in. Now, I don't know if that specifically was one of the things, but yeah, let's just pour all of our alcohol in that and just dip out of that. Something meant for a holy purpose, and let's just use it to get drunk.
It's basically like using our Bibles as plates.
Yeah, think you have your Bible and you go to a party that is definitely not a church party, and you like nacho dip
Have our Bibles and
chips, and then you're like, nah. Yeah, that's basically what happened there. And all of a sudden, a disembodied hand starts writing on the wall, and Daniel is once again called in to interpret, and basically says, "You have been measured and found wanting, and your time is at an end." And the king was like, thanks for that message, promoted again, and keeps partying. He's like, okay, whatever, at least I know what that message was. And then that night, he is assassinated.
Do you
Right?
think
Wow.
that
Oh, cool.
since they're probably already like drunk, do you think they might have just thought that they saw something since they're drunk?
I mean, maybe, but it freaked him out enough to seek out this wise man who was able to interpret dreams or hallucinations before. And he was like, okay, at least other people saw that, and at least I know I'm not going crazy. Nobody drugged my wine or anything. Okay, I can live with I don't meet the standards of some god. Okay, and then he gets killed.
Okay.
Right. He does not repent and faces the consequences that night as King Darius the Mede comes in and receives the kingdom, is a very nice way of saying came in and conquered. Okay. So now there's a new king, and we see chapter 6, another very familiar story, is linked to chapter 3. Okay, chapter 3, we had faithful people refusing to worship anyone other than Yahweh, being persecuted. Chapter 6, we have another faithful person refusing to worship anybody other than Yahweh, being persecuted and delivered, just like in chapter 3. Okay, so we have Daniel in the den of lions, right? Where his co-workers, the other wise men, were jealous of him because he keeps getting promoted, and they're like, gotta do something. Scheme, and they come up with this plan and have the king even sign a decree that says you can only, you cannot pray to anybody other than the king.
For 30 days.
For 30 days. It's not forever, it's just for a time. And they have a stakeout outside of Daniel's house, and they find him praying, 3 times a day to Yahweh. And they say, hey, look, we caught him. And the king is like, oh no, not Daniel, I actually like him. And tries to figure out a workaround, can't do it. We kind of saw that with Esther, with the king, where the king made a decree, can't change it. He can try and work around it, find a loophole, but that's the best he can do. And yeah, but that's not how the laws work. And so in this case, it was, all right, send him off into, send him to the executioner to be thrown into a den of lions. And then sealed it. The next day, the king is really worried, comes out to check on his good pal Daniel, and he's just chilling with the lions. It's like, yeah, God saved me. Closed the mouths of the lions. I'm good. And this king is like, The God of Daniel is to be worshipped, and also all the guys who schemed and their families
Bye.
thrown into the lions, and their bones were broken before they even got to the bottom of the pit.
How
Cool.
does that work?
Air
The lions.
No, air resistance.
It does say the lions overpowered them and broke all their bones in pieces before they reached the bottom. That's verse 24. Not making that.
Landed on a lion and then the other. They're technically not touching the ground.
Yeah. And that
Technicalities.
chapter is also connected to chapter 1, where it's established this base of faithfulness in Babylon. And then we see these two examples. Okay? Then chapter 7 is connected to chapter 2. We had the king having a dream. Now it's Daniel's turn to have a dream. Okay? And this is where we get into the things that Pastor Grady has done an excellent job explaining each of these visions, so I'm not going to repeat that or steal his thunder for this week and next week. I will give a brief summary to the best of my ability of each of these dreams. But the first dream in chapter 7, Daniel has a dream of 4 beasts, one of whom is greater and more terrifying than the rest. The Ancient of Days, which is another name for Yahweh himself, appears on his throne and kills and defeats the great beast and removes the dominion of the other 3. A man appears before the Ancient of Days and is given an everlasting kingdom over all peoples. We can assume that that's Jesus. Daniel's dream is interpreted by an angel. So this dream was confusing enough that Daniel, the dream interpreter, needed a dream interpreter straight from heaven.
Wait, but didn't he take, when he interpreted all the other dreams, he kind of...
They were through the power of God, yes.
So...
The wisdom that God gave him. And this is beyond the wisdom that he has. Okay. His dream is interpreted by an angel. Each of the beasts is a kingdom, and one is different from the others, being the ultimate big, bad, evil kingdom. The culmination of all evil in the world. The big, bad kingdom will have 10 kings, and one more king over them will speak out against God, but will be destroyed. God's everlasting kingdom will be set up in its place. That's the brief summary. Again, Grady's given all the details and all the things. And that, chapter 7, is a gateway back into Hebrew, which is, remember, that is Daniel's heart language. That's probably the language that he thinks in. And so it's very natural, now that we're done interacting with the Babylonians, very natural for it to go back into Hebrew for the remainder of these dreams, visions, prayers. Hebrew is probably the language that Daniel prayed in. So it really makes sense for the rest of the book to be in Hebrew. It's a more internal than external. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So Daniel has another vision. This one is a ram with 2 horns that terrorizes the land and is defeated by a goat with 1 horn, whose horn is later broken and replaced with smaller horns, one of whom grows greater than the rest. Again, these wacky things, and I'm just speed running through it. The angel Gabriel interprets the vision. The ram is Media and Persia and its kings. The goat is Greece, who will take over, and a powerful ruler will come out of it and will cause great trouble for God's people for a while, but will be defeated by God. That chapter ends by saying that Daniel did not understand any of it, and it made him sick. Even after the angel interpreted it, he was still I don't get it. It's making my tummy hurt. I'm just going to go back to work.
It's how I feel whenever I read the Bible. It's
Yeah, so even someone who wrote the Bible was confused about the words that he wrote into the Bible. Okay, so don't feel bad when you read this and go, what? But he was my tummy hurts, I'm going to go back to work now. Then later in chapter 9, Daniel reads Jeremiah. He reads the writing of a prophet from not too long ago and realizes that Jerusalem's desolation will last 70 years. And we're kind of getting to the end of that. He's like, okay, the end is coming. He prays to the Lord for forgiveness for his people. He recognizes that the people of Israel have messed up and broken the covenant that was established with Abraham and Moses. When he prays, Gabriel returns to tell him of 70 weeks. Again, Grady's been explaining this wonderfully. These weeks, where 1 week is actually 7 years, and it's a very detailed timeline calendar of what are events future to Daniel, most of which are past to us. Okay, remember the ribbon timeline from a few weeks ago, right? Okay, I'm not going to explain all of that again to you, but ultimately there's most of the weeks by our point have happened. We're still waiting for that last week. I think Grady's talking more about that today, maybe. TBD. So again, these things that Daniel doesn't even fully understand. Chapter 10, Daniel is praying and fasting and receives a vision of a man clothed in linen and definitely heavenly in nature. It doesn't specifically say that it was an angel or that it was the angel of the Lord or that it was God himself. The way that Grady interpreted that was that it was the superhero Jesus. That is up to interpretation, because depending on how you read it, and if you see there's a scene change at a certain point, it could also just be an angel. Okay, because again, depending on how you read it, and we can talk about that later if you want, the same person or maybe a different person wakes Daniel up after he passes out and says, "Sorry, it took me so long to get back to you. I was detained by these other demons and needed help from an angel." That does not sound like Jesus, especially superhero Jesus, needing help from anybody when he can speak and they die.
Or just
So
make them
probably a scene change when Daniel passes out because he saw superhero Jesus, wakes up to the voice of a different person.
That'd be great.
Okay. Either way, he sees a person that's definitely heavenly, and is then told of some more really complicated political events that are now mostly past to us. There's kings in different parts of the world, and ultimately what chapter 11 is getting at, and this bleeds into chapter 12 as well, is that rulers, earthly rulers boast, nations fight, and God's people suffer. But God still remains sovereign and in control, and ultimately he wins and establishes his kingdom forever and ever and ever. Amen. That's the end of the book of Daniel. Will there be an end to suffering? Yes. To be continued, yeah. Yes, there will be an end. You just gotta wait. You gotta be patient. Dear Lord, thank you so much for giving us your word, as complicated and dense as it can be sometimes. Thank you that we are in excellent company not understanding things. Thank you that you included those couple of verses where Daniel, the person who wrote the book, was also confused. That makes me feel better. I just pray that you would give us understanding every time we open your word. But ultimately, thank you that we don't need to understand everything. Thank you that the concept of faith exists, where we can trust that you have everything figured out, that you know all the details, you are in control of everything, even when we just don't get it. Or when we think we understand, but then other people that are smarter than us disagree. Just thank you that we don't have to agree on everything, but that we agree that you are all-powerful and that your kingdom will be established and will rule and reign forever and ever and ever and ever. Amen.